charge of your brain. So let's go and get on with it, I guess. Welcome, Dr. Nick.
Woo! Thank you. Thank you, Brooke. So thank you all. How are you all doing? Are you doing well? Yes, so change your mind, change you. Just a couple of questions to the audience before I start. If you could have any car, like a car you thought was amazing, what would it be? Porsche, Ferrari, anything else? Aston Martin. They are amazing machines, aren't they? And I always think, you know, we know they're amazing machines, like the Bugatti Veyron. But if everyone in the world had a Bugatti Veyron, we'd think it was a rubbish machine, because everyone's got one. And it's the same with us human beings. Because there's so many human beings around, we don't realize what amazing people we all are. So I want you to give a round of applause to yourselves and the people sitting around you for being amazing people. So big round of applause. Okay, so change your mind, change you. That's thanks to AI, that picture. Oh. So just so you know, this presentation is intended for general education only. It's not a medical, psychological, therapeutic advice or treatment. Toilets are there as well. I'm not sure they fit in together. So that's me. Just for people who don't know you, I'm not one who likes to sort of talk too much about myself because I'm English and my grandma always said you shouldn't show off or anything. But just so you know, I've been a medical doctor since 1992. I qualified in Liverpool. I ended up doing a master's in sports medicine, but at the same time created my own psychological processes, which I call psychological surgery. And I wanted to check, does it work or not? So I tried with some sports people, and I had a tennis player who was number 7 or 8 in England, about to give up. And within, I think, 8 to 9 months, she was number 1 in England and beat a 10 seed at Wimbledon. So we did this. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Because there is, if we understand how the brain works, we can do so much with it, and it's so important. So if you're going to learn anything today, if you just learn this little bit, I think you'll learn something. Your mind is like a stallion. Either you ride it, or like most of it, it rides you. And I think a lot of us, especially in this busy world, we let our brain ride and go off. So how would our life be different if we were actually in charge of our brain, and instead of listening to what was going on, was actually putting in the thoughts that we needed to. In other words, we were a top rider of our own brain. And people who do amazingly in life have this. You'll find this in the top soldiers, because I used to work with soldiers, sports people, entrepreneurs. They actually put in their mind where they want to go, rather than listen to their mind. So, just to remind ourselves, we think about a lot of things in life, don't we? We think about food, love, even the washing, money, you know, getting fit. But the one thing we never think about is thinking. So it's really important. So this is about how do you think. And this talk's going to be, there's so much I can talk about. I could probably talk about a week about all this. So we're just going to skim the surface for this session. So in 2 and 3s, maybe somebody you don't know, if you want to be brave, what do you want to get out of tonight? And what one thing, if you did, if it changed, would really help your life? So do you want to just get together and do that? Does anyone want to share, you know, what you want to get out of tonight, or if something changed, how it would change your life? Does anyone want to share?
Overthinking.
You want to stop overthinking?
Planning for things that haven't happened yet.
Yes. Is it catastrophizing?
Catastrophizing.
Does anyone know what catastrophizing is? Yeah, catastrophizing is a way the brain, if there's like a 1 in a million chance of something bad happening, you focus as if that's what's going to happen. So it's actually called catastrophizing. So actually, I think if you look at anxiety, one of the things is catastrophizing. So again, if you trained your brain to look at where you want to go rather than where you think you're going to go. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to share? Okay, fabulous. So I've got some core messages for you. And I think this is really important. As I said, if you walk away with 1 or 2 things, if you've got this is so important. You are not your thoughts and feelings. I'm pausing for effect. You are not your thoughts and feelings. You think you are, and you feel like you are, but you're not. And I'll show you that it's true. So I want you just for a second to think about what your thoughts and feelings are at the moment. So just observe your own thoughts and feelings for the next 20, 30 seconds. Okay, and was everyone able to observe their thoughts and feelings?
It's too quick.
It was too quick for you. Okay, but did most people able to think, oh, I'm thinking this, I'm thinking that, I'm wondering what today is, I can feel this, I feel that. If you can observe something, you can't actually be it. You can never observe yourself. You can observe a picture of yourself or the mirror, but you can't do it. So actually, when you start to want to get in control of your thoughts and feelings, the first thing is to observe it. So I have a number of patients who might, have episodes where they're feeling very low and their whole brain says, you're rubbish and worthless. By observing it, all of a sudden you're not worthless. All you're doing is saying, my brain's telling me I'm worthless. So at least 1% of you knows that you're not worthless, if that makes sense. So, and when we look, and we'll look at the subconscious soon, we'll look at why our brain might be telling those things in the first place. So I really want you to get, you are not your thoughts and feelings. So important. 2, thoughts and feelings feel true, but they are a truth, not the only truth. So when we look at catastrophizing, so we brought that up, we know that there's a truth that your future is going to be really rubbish. But there's also a truth that your future is going to be really great. And there's an old saying, what you think about comes about. So if you realize that your mind is not telling you the truth, it's telling you a truth, and there could be a million other truths. So part of good sort of mental health, but not only that, creating the world you want, is actually choosing the truth that suits you and actually making it happen. And a lot of people, when they're making the truth of the future they want, they feel like they're a fraud. And they are a fraud from where they've come from because their belief structure is telling them how rubbish they are. But if you keep telling yourself, eventually it becomes your norm. And so it's really important to realize that there are many truths and you might as well choose the one that you really want. 3, you can change your thoughts and feelings and it happens in a moment. Life changes in a second, right? When people write film scripts, which I've written quite a few of those because I like doing that, there's something called, the mid part of a film is called death and rebirth of the character. The character changes within a second. Now it might take the whole film, or in our lives, it might take 40 years to reach that moment to change, but actually change is instantaneous. And so a lot of stuff, when they're moving on, we can flip from one thing to another. For long-term change, it needs to be a change of the subconscious. So if we look at the pictures there, we can see, does anyone know what that computer is on the left? Are we impressed? Pardon? ZX81. Yeah, so that's like the old computer from like the early 80s. But that's like our conscious mind, that computer. But we have a whole data station, which is the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is basically the operating system of who we are. And it represents about 95 to 100, between 95 and 100% of our thoughts and thinking. I know a lot of people say it's 90, but I'm sure it's more than that. To change the unconscious, you must understand how it works. So the conscious and subconscious have completely different languages. Now, I want you all, just for a moment, because again, I like you to work, just think back to a child you were friendly with at primary school. Just have a think and see what comes up in your brain. Okay, we all doing that? Now, when you're looking at that child, you've probably got an opinion associated with that child. It's probably your best mate. Most people do that. So you're probably feeling that this person's a good person. But also, your subconscious would feel that if they walked in the room now, they should walk in as a 6 or 7-year-old. It's a bit like when you go to a reunion, you haven't seen anyone for 30 years, and you go, that person clearly can't be Michelle or Emma or whatever, because Emma's not this old, this old person or whatever. So your subconscious has completely different rules. And part of the rules of the subconscious is, if it's in the subconscious, it's the truth of the subconscious. Again, it's a truth of many truths, but the subconscious, once it holds on to something. So if when you're a child, you've been brought up to say that you're rubbish, the truth of the subconscious is you're rubbish. So everything you do with the subconscious will be under the auspice of you're rubbish. So nothing's going to work well or do that. It's not true, but it becomes true. So the question is, how do you reprogram that? Can you change that? Well, actually, you can change that, but it has to be changed by the way the subconscious works, which we'll get into. Okay, we're going to try a willpower test. So if you clench your fist as tight as you can, and see if you can hold it for like 15 seconds, and then disconnect, and then try and hold it again, and try and hold it hard, try and hold it harder again. Okay, you're doing very well. Have you noticed there's only so much you can do to change? Have you noticed you can't keep getting stronger and stronger? This is willpower. The more willpower you have, you're not going to get any stronger. So one of my concerns is a lot of people talk about willpower, you've got the power to change. But if you change it on the conscious mind and just trying harder and harder, you can't change it. It's only when the subconscious kicks in and your subconscious says, this is who you are. So, okay, so we're going to look at another thing. What is the greatest present? Self-awareness, that's pretty good. Anyone else? Say that again? Present moment. Yeah, the greatest present is to be present. How often in this world things are going wrong is because we're not present. And actually, becoming present is really, really important. It's one of the learning steps of how the subconscious works and the conscious works. Because we've seen all this before, haven't we? How many walk through the streets and can't believe how many people are on phones? But when you're present, what does it actually mean? So what it means is that you're just allowing all the information in without observing it, but without having an opinion about it. And there's 6 main senses I like to talk about. There's actually 30 senses, believe it or not. I came up with 30. So we have things like proprioception, which I know Sean over there, who's a physio, will like that. He's nodding. Yeah. But we have things like feeling full, echolocation, but we have the 6 main ones. I know you'll say, isn't it 5? But in NLP, I've changed it a bit. I've got the VAKKGO. And that stands for what you see, vision, what you hear, auditory. K is how you feel, but it's so important because the feelings are both emotional and then the second one is physical. And then how you taste and smell. So your 6 main ones. So being present is just allowing all this information in. And actually, you can't be anxious, you can't be depressed if you're completely present. It's absolutely impossible. And most people aren't there. So I'm going to give you a little game to do, which is I just want you to look at something or somebody and just look at them and just go through what do I see, hear, taste, smell, and just go through that and just see how your body reacts to that. So, okay, great. How are we doing? Did anyone feel any different? Do we have anything from the audience? Did anyone feel a bit clearer? Did anyone notice something they hadn't noticed before? Like, oh, I noticed you're wearing a blue shirt with a little thing on. Did anyone notice more that's happening when they focused? Yeah, it's quite interesting because I've had some patients who've been very depressed and I've said, close your eyes, and I've said, what tie am I wearing? And they'll say, oh, it's a red tie, doctor, or a blue tie. Never wear ties. And they're really, it's true. And because they're not present, they're not there. And the thing is, when people, or when we are in a state of angst or catastrophizing, we're not present. So the first thing is, if you can become present, it can be really useful. And I wasn't going to talk about this, but I might as well, seeing we're doing it. Does anyone here know what anchoring is? Because this is a really good technique. I've got a feeling you might like this one. Yeah. So anchoring is a technique to actually be present and to set it off. So Pavlov's dogs, does anyone remember Pavlov's dogs from school? Yeah, it was a scientist, I think it was like 1900 and something, and he had all these dogs, and every time the food came out, they'd salivate. But then what he used to do is ring a bell, and every time the food came out, they'd ring a bell. Eventually, the dogs got so used to him ringing a bell, the food would come out, that when he just rang a bell and there was no food, they would salivate. So one physical thing sort of created the whole physiology of the other person. So anchoring is, and it's really good to do, so I do this because I don't like heights. So I think the easiest way, you can all try it if you want, is to hold your thumb and forefinger together, and then just breathe in. Now, breathing is really important. The best way of breathing I've found is breathe in for 3 through your nose, hold for 4, and breathe out. And if anything's crossed, you might want to uncross it because you want to be really relaxed. You don't have to, but it's nicer. So just breathe in for 3, hold for 4. Feel how stable you are, how grounded you are on there. Breathe in through your nose for 3, hold for 4, breathe out for 5. And as you're doing that, just give yourself some nice feelings. Imagine you're in a beautiful place. Doing this by the beach is great. What do you smell? What do you taste? What do you see? What do you hear? How do you feel? What do you taste? What do you smell? And keep doing that. Now, if you keep doing that regularly, eventually the body will get used to the fact that every time you do this, your body will go into the same physiology. It'll start to slow down and relax. So I use it with a lot of patients with anxiety. It's a really helpful little tool. But actually a lot of sportsmen use anchoring. So Tiger Woods used it. He used to they did it by tapping the club. And the way he tapped this club just took his pulse rate down. So it physiologically changes you. So it's a really useful trick to have. And the more you practice it, the more you get used to it. I hated heights, so I used to go skiing. I was actually quite a good skier. But I'd be sitting on the ski lift and there'd be like a 5-year-old kid like jumping around like this, and I'd be like holding the bar, just completely nervous. But I anchored myself in the bar that night. And then whenever I felt it, I did that, and it just calmed me down. Really useful technique. It's actually stolen from NLP, if anyone wants to know where that came from. So this is another interesting thing. What you think about comes about. So I was chatting with somebody today. Someone was saying to me, no, you have to be careful with what you say because what you say comes true. So it is very careful. So our thoughts, our lives are almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if in your brain it says you're going to do rubbish, you're not going to do well, then that's what's going to happen. So our self-speak is really, really important, what we tell ourselves. And our brain will often tell us that actually that's not going to happen. We're rubbish, don't you know it, nothing's going to work, I can't change. But actually, part of riding your horse is knowing that if you put the right thoughts in and you focus on it, that will happen. Because if you look at your life and you look at some of the results of your life, you may find that actually I knew that was going to happen. And interesting enough, and I'm going to skip actually because it's quite good fun, this is one of my favourite things to do, when I'm standing on stage anyway, is to have a look at the back. You'll see it says, make a decision. It's a little table. What did you do in your life? What decision did you make? Did it come out good or bad? I think there might be some more there if you want. And then, did you make the decision out of fear or love? Yeah, can I challenge that? Because I would say that leaving a domestic violence situation is a form of love, self-love. So you may be fearful in the situation, but the actual decision is because you do not deserve to be treated like that and you deserve a good life, which is self-love. Would that be a fair... Yeah? So has anyone got anything else they've... Yeah, young Brooke.
I guess in nowadays, like dating can be quite stressful.
Yes.
And out of fear of what, you're going to be single for your whole life.
Yes.
Force it.
Yes.
Force dating. And that's out of fear.
And do you feel that some of the dates you've gone on, you've done through fear, and have they worked out well or not well?
Not well.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Just being honest.
Technically, I'm Brooke's work dad. I'm sure she won't mind me saying. So I get to see everyone she dates and give my opinion. So I can corroborate. So it's a really important thing to start when we're creating our world, because when you look at people who have a big goal, and we all need a big goal in our lives, but I think, and this is really important because we all have a purpose, and the big goal for each of us is very different. And the big is not in the size of what other people think, it's what fills us with joy and is our purpose. So some people's big goal is like Elon Musk is to have these companies worth trillions of dollars. Others is to have a family and be a brilliant mother or father. One goal is not better than the other, it's what's the right goal for that person. And do you think people make their goals, are more likely to succeed in their goals if they're big or small? What do you think? Okay, we've got small. Anyone else small? Yeah. It's actually been shown that most people fail their goals because they're too small. In other words, think about a goal. Think about a goal. I could say, I'm going to get you a new job. You're going to make $50 more a week. You know, you might have 5 minutes less, and it's going to be a bit stressful, but that's your goal. How much attention are you going to put on that goal? Whereas if it's like, I've always wanted to be, I wanted to be a golfer, and you happen to be that age, I would love to be the top golfer. By going for this, I'm going to win the PGA finals, I'm going to have millions of dollars, do the thing I love, and also help people. Which one are you going to put more attention on? Yeah, the big one. See, what people normally fail is that they make small goals they don't really want. That doesn't happen. So they say if the small goals won't work, the big goal won't work. But it's the attention you put on your goal that's really important. And again, we'll probably talk more in the session. We're going to do another one in a month's time about how do you really goal set? How do people really get there? Because it's about being very integral with yourself. Because we're all, I believe, we're all here and we all have a purpose. Every one of us has different skills. We're all a slightly different Bugatti Veyron, okay? So, positive thinking. I have a big thing about positive thinking. Okay, I'm the best. And this goes back to goal setting. So we have all these positive thinkings. But to me, positive thinking is about that guy who might want to sit on the line. I do not like positive thinking. It's too fluffy and fairy. I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a this. I want to be a that. When you're creating the goal and you're finding out who you truly are, I was put down I was going to do a joke, but I won't do it. I'll give it you in a second. You probably wish I hadn't. I know, Brooke has to put up with my jokes and not in the office. Specific positive thinking is really important. So, in other words, if you wanted a house and you're like focused and you're going, no, I want that house and I want to have a beautiful house, you should be able to feel the curtains. You should be able to, in your mind, walk around it and know where you've put the salt and pepper, right? The more specific you are, the more your brain and subconscious is going to put it on. Because your subconscious, because it's different, and we'll go into this again a lot deeper in the second session, but the subconscious knows your future. It's decided what your future is. It's decided how well you're going to be, and it's decided that from your past. It's extrapolated because the subconscious is there to make you survive at the expense of you able to thrive. So a good example is you might have a 20-year-old kid who wants to be a chef, they burn themselves on the hob, they get anxious about it, and the subconscious never wants them to touch fire again. So yeah, they're safe, but they'll never be a chef. So that's how the subconscious works. The subconscious, when you put a program, and a good example of this is what we call PTSD, although I have a slightly different name for it, is that when a program goes in the past to say this, which keeps being reactivated, say some of the soldiers I worked with as if they're on the battlefield, it also gave a program in the future saying this is going to happen again. So you better be wary, even when they're walking through a supermarket. So a program happened in the past and the future. So when you're looking at the subconscious and you're looking at reprogramming and doing things in the subconscious, you need to be changing the past and the future. And there are ways to do that. So one of the first things is, again, you're learning certain things like the VA-KGO system, which, as I said, stolen from NLP, but really, really useful. And when you're creating what you really want, you want it to be a game. Your brain. So sometimes I get patients who've been through a really hard time, and they'll tell me their life's going there. And I normally point to the wall. Oh, yeah, so that's your life. Let me play a game with you. If this was your life in a year's time or 6 months, where actually your kids are doing really well, you've got a new job, you've got a new house, you feel fabulous, you've lost a stone or something, you feel great. And this was, how would you feel? And they automatically go, oh, I feel great. And suddenly, instead of 100% of their mind saying their life's going to be terrible, 1% has said, actually, your life's going to be good. So suddenly you start doing it. So how do we get this person now, instead of walking towards the future that their brain wanted to walk to the new future? Well, the first thing is to create it. And the more you create it in your brain, the future's more created by the vision, than anything, but actually all of them are important. Is you create it in your brain. And so when you're creating who you want to be and where you want to be, it needs to be from the heart. I'll go through some of these in a minute. But it needs to be who you are. You know, there's a lot of talk about manifestation. You know, I want to manifest a really good car or this, that, the other. I don't think that's what we really want. We want to be purposeful and doing what we were sort of made to do on this planet. So it's really important, and then when you're creating it, be specific with it. I can feel the curtains. My God, I've got my office. I can feel myself sitting in the office. I know what's in the top drawer. You know, really important. So, again, I used to love those. Because again, you know, just the bridge thing, you know, if you want to build a bridge, you can be positively thinking, but you need to specifically positively build it that doesn't happen. So, also when you're creating your future and you're creating your subconscious and you're looking at this, you can't be 99% pregnant, or you can't 99% jump off the board, or, you know, 99% jump, you know, break the glass. When you're creating, you have to imagine 100%. Actually, do you know who the best people to teach you how to create your future is? Go on, I think we've got a good answer there. Sorry, I missed who said that. Kids, yes. Yeah, how do kids play? Yeah. Like if they're pretending they're driving a racing car, even though they've just got a plate. Yeah, they make the noises, they make the movements. They are 100% there. Yeah, and that's how we need to be when we're creating and doing this, because we're going to change our mind. And of course, while we're thinking about what's great and the thing we want to, the other side, the other picture is going to get less and less. The catastrophizing is going to go down because we're going to be so focused on where we want to be. So just to recap a little bit, you know, getting present's really important because you're just clear. But then understanding that your brain and your thoughts aren't true, they just feel true, or they're a truth of a million truths. And they may be serving you, but they may not be serving you. So you might as well have the thoughts and feelings of where you want to go. So often, if you want to know where you want to go, if you're doing a business plan or you decide to get on a road trip, you always start with where you want to be. You know, if you want to write that to Sydney, you normally put a finger on Sydney and go, right, how am I going to get there? So that's really important. And then create it in its entirety. And most of us will feel like a fraud because our brain's been doing the same thing again and again and again. But remember, we're now these mind masters, all of you, who are going to ride their stallion and not be ridden by our stallion. And of course, like a lot of things, it takes practice. So, certain things are really important when you're creating your goal and for daily living. So these are things. So gratitude is really important. Helping others. So I think when we're creating our futures and things, all these things are part of it. Often do the opposite. So what I mean by that is one of the amazing things, I remember walking with a friend in London, just near Tower Bridge, and this girl was there who she knew, and she was on the streets, she had nothing. And she was there, and she said she'd just been to church. Oh, that's nice. I said, do you want some money? She said, yeah, I could do with some money because I gave my last £5 to the church. She had nothing, but she felt rich because she had money she could give to someone else. Maybe that's not the best thing she could have done with the £5. But the point is, when we're feeling really poor and we've got that, sometimes giving a bit of money away helps. You know, when we're feeling sorry for ourselves and things are bad, you know, I had a friend who's traveling. I said, what I sometimes do is, when I'm in Thailand, there's lots of people on the streets, I just buy boxes of biscuits or things. I just hand them out to different people. Makes you feel good. You know, you do the opposite. You feel alone, you do that. So often doing the opposite, which seems really counterproductive, but it actually works. And don't compare, which is really important. I'm obviously the one closest to me there, just so you know. Although, yes, just so you know. Yeah, because one of the problems is in the Western world, we've got this thing that, well, you're more successful than I am. But actually, it's not that I do yoga, but I know people say keep it on your mat. Your yoga practice is nothing to do with anybody else's. If you start going, yes, but my friend's got this, or they've got this house, you're always going to fail. And actually what you're going to do is you're going to start living somebody else's life. So it's really interesting. If you start comparing, thinking, why don't I have that or this, that, or the other? The problem is you're stopping living your life and going after what you really want to. So, and no shoulds and buts. Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Go on, I've talked to you. Go on, Brooke.
Like saying, oh, I should be doing this.
Yes.
I know, just putting like
Yeah,
an
you go.
expectation in your mind, like, oh, my friend's doing this, so I should be doing that.
I should. So I should. There's actually I should, you should, and it should.
Yeah.
Yeah, shoulding's a really interesting thing because actually I come across it a lot, and especially if I'm seeing somebody depressed. There's something I call the mountain mule, which is somebody who's doing brilliantly, but they've got all this, I should do this, I should do, I should, and it's like carrying the whole world on their shoulders. So the reason that I don't like shoulds is it doesn't give you free choice. So I shoulds come from the past. Or it comes if we go into, I think we talk a little bit about Freud in a minute. So I'm not going to, and I'm just doing a general thing, I'm not going too quick over points, am I? You're all happy, yeah. So it's a really useful thing because if you find yourself going, I should, that actually is taking you from the reality of life, which is I could, which might sound very subtle, but actually it's really big. It's not that you should be a good husband or wife, you can choose to be a good husband and wife. And there's a really big difference between the two. And does anyone, so when you're creating your goal, the most important one is but. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? I'm not talking about posteriors. No? Okay, because a lot of people when they do their goal, they go, I really want a goal. I want to own my own restaurant, but I want to spend more time with my children. Or but I won't have enough time to go and play tennis, but. So whenever you're creating your big goal doesn't have any buts. So you need to turn things around. So I'll give you an example. So my friend wanted to do documentaries. So I used to live in LA and do some of this stuff with producers. And actually we managed to sell a TV show. We did some Mind stuff within a week to CBS. So just showing off, sorry about that. But I'm proud of that one. But he wanted to do documentaries, but he wouldn't have enough time to find a wife. So we made it that he was going to produce documentaries that were going to be so brilliant that he was going to have plenty of money and plenty of time to have a wife. Okay. As it happened, he never made documentaries, he's still not married. You can't win everyone. You know, but you see my but. You can understand that when you're creating your goals, no buts, which is really important. So, other things that are important, breathing. So that breathing technique, apparently breathing out more than you breathe in is really important. A lot of us, I can't help doing a bit of medicine, a lot of us are acidotic, which is not good, and makes us old quickly. And one of the reasons is we actually hyperventilate, and often we do it chronically. So we breathe shallow and slowly, a lot of us hold our breath. And actually it's telling the brain there's a problem. Whereas if you breathe really slowly, your brain's going, well, there can't be anything dangerous in the room because you're breathing so slowly and it calms you down. So I've always found, as you did earlier, the 3-4-5, through nose, hold for 3, hold for 4, breathe out 5, really important. And learning to breathe is so important. And self-care, again, going back to what Julie said, if you don't mind me, I think we almost should give you a round of applause if you can for making a really positive choice for your life. Because when you make self-love, then your life moves forward. Yes. So one of the things I want to talk about, what is your paradigm? Who you are, what are you capable of, and what's your future holding? Because I think we're all here, we can play a game, but we might as well play the game that really inspires us and is really part of us. And every part of our brain will probably say you can't do it. But there's plenty of brains that have said I can't do it, and people have done it anyway. And what's really interesting as well, just going back to how the brain works, is it's not what happens, it's the interpretation of what happens. So a lot of children, they say we create who we are by the age of 7. Apparently we were in hypnosis up to the age of 7. Yeah, same brainwave patterns as a 6-year-old as us in hypnosis. But actually when we're creating who we are, it's the opinion. So I had somebody who in maths he was a soldier and he wanted to join the police force. And he said he can't do maths. And it turned out that when he was 6, he put his hand up when somebody says, what's 3 + 1? He goes, it's 5, sir. No, it's not 5, Johnny. He goes, yeah, it's 5. No, it's not. And eventually he says it 2 or 3 times. He goes, are you stupid, the teacher? And then in Johnny's brain, he thought he was stupid. And so he couldn't do maths. So we actually reprogrammed that you're really clever. And within like 5-10 minutes, you could do maths that you couldn't do before. It's not that you couldn't do the maths, it's just brain was clicked to say you can't do maths. Interesting enough, there are other people who a teacher would say, you're maths, you're stupid, you can't do it, not that you should do it. And one of the students will go, no, I'm not, I'm brilliant, I'll show you. And he'll probably become the professor of maths at Sydney Uni or something. So it's really important, it's the opinion that it makes. So if we look at this, and hopefully I'm not going too fast because I'm just doing an overview, but this is really important when we understand where we got everything. Freud, and I know a lot of people don't like Freud, but I think he's still relevant, talked about 3 ego states, and it's a really simple way of starting to understand how our brain works. And he says we've got the inner child, we've got who we think we are now, and in fact that picture hasn't come up, that's meant to be a parent. Oh, sorry, that one is the parent telling off. And we've got what he called the superego, which is the voice of authority. And often when it's like, you should do this, you should do that, actually it's not our true voice, it's the voice of our parents or teachers from childhood. So a lot of times when people get into distress and say they start to catastrophize, going back to is they go from the normal pattern of being a, say, 40-year-old, I don't know how old you are, but maybe 35, but a 35-year-old, and their brainwave pattern goes right back to a 6-year-old. And actually, I've actually been with people who've run top banks. I always say a bank like Barclays, because it wasn't Barclays, but that sort of size of bank. And the CEO of the bank who I was helping used to tantrum and kick things and everything. And he realized he was 6 years old. And so when you're sort of looking and observing your thoughts, you'll realize, and I often say to patients, how old are you at this point? And I don't mean it because I go into inner child all the time, so it's not we all do it. And realizing that actually half of what we want to do is go back into being an adult and actually fathering or mothering our own inner child. And that's how the subconscious starts to work. So if you realize how weird the subconscious is, that if something is activated now, a bit like PTSD, where if you activate what happened on the battlefield, say a noise reminds them of it, suddenly the whole physiology of that person is there. So if we can understand how the subconscious works, we can actually go in and start changing things and playing around with it for our own good. Okay, so again, this is the thing looking at the conscious and subconscious. So are we all good here? Does anyone want the joke, or shall I just carry on? Joke? Okay, this is the only bit I want to do well today. There's a man who goes into a restaurant and he comes in with his ostrich and they sit together, as you do. And the waitress comes over and he says, I'll have a bowl of soup and I'll have some sausages. And the ostrich says, yeah, I'll have the same. And then the bill comes to like $27 and he puts his hand in his pocket, slaps it on the table, and he says, there you go, and it's exactly the right change. Next day he comes in for breakfast, he goes, I'll have the sausages, scrambled egg on toast, and the ostrich says, I'll have exactly the same. And then the bill comes to $24.36, puts his hand in his pocket, puts it down, exactly the right amount. And the waiter says, how come every time you come in here you've got exactly the right change? He says, well, I met a genie and he gave me 2 wishes. And one wish is I always have exactly the right change for anything I want. From a Ferrari to a house to dinner, exactly the right change. And she said, well, what about the ostrich? Oh, that was a bit of a mistake. I asked for a tall bird with long legs who always agrees with me. There you go. So be careful what you wish for. Yes. So good. So this is to remind us of the conscious and the subconscious. So the subconscious is so big. I'm just reminding, we said that before, it's there for you to survive at the expense of you being able to thrive. So this is something that I did. I sort of used AI to help me a bit and it sort of changed it a bit. But something's happening, there's a fight in the playground, say a teacher or somebody's looking there. It doesn't go straight on the subconscious, it goes to, we all know it, the committee. You've got the committee working now. Everything I'm saying is not going on to your subconscious, it's being filtered by your already knowing. So in a sense, and one of the problems with that is, with what I'm saying, if I'm saying, oh, you can do it, you can have a life, you're a great person, and your brain says, no, I'm not, and the committee says, no, you're not, it'll just go on the subconscious is, oh, that Dr. Nick was just talking rubbish. So what happens is something happens, goes through, filtered, and then it gets put, if you notice, that's meant to be slightly pink, so it's sort of coloured by your committee, and it creates your past and future. So it creates an image of the past which comes on, and also something for the future, that this might happen again. Again, what is in a program? So in the program, and it's like, I always think of it slots for like DVDs in our thing, is we have the VAK-KGO, remember that, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, both physically, emotional, gustatory, which is taste, olfactory, which is smell. The physiology of the moment, what was your pulse rate doing? Were you sweating? Really important. Your eye movement, what were they doing? Your emotional charge. Also, there's a flag. If the brain thinks this could kill you, and actually it's not just a death physically, a social death or psychological death can be as important. It will have like a big flag there saying, this better be opened every time something happens, which is why in something like PTSD, it keeps reactivating, and the patient thinks they're there, and they'll get all the same symptoms, the heart rate, the breathing, and everything else. So we know that happens. So if that happens, and every time I'm talking to you, telling you, you're this great person, you can do this, that, or the other, and it gets filtered by the committee, then is it a lost race? Can we not change the subconscious? The person I learned programming from, actually, if anyone knows Steve Harris, he was a boxer and beat Chris Eubank, and he was a no-hoper. He actually did all the mind programming. He was sort of Mr. Ireland. And he was like on another scale with reprogramming people. And he used to call this committee, which is the red thing, when it's spread apart, unconscious attention. And you sort of know people are in unconscious attention because their eyes are like open. Often they flicker a little bit, that they're like this. Is there any time that in people's lives that happens? Any ideas? Yeah, well, stress is if you're stressed, so if somebody has a car accident, they're not going to be thinking about their tax return hopefully not, or something else. They're going to be completely present to the danger of what's just happened or what could happen next. So your committee spreads apart. In pure relaxation, it spreads apart. You can actually spread it apart if you overdo the VAKGO. So if I get someone to say, what do you see, what do you hear, what do you taste, what do you smell? Come on, what do you hear, what do you smell? And you keep doing it, eventually the committee you become really present. Because actually getting rid of the committee is being present. And we know that being present is of greatest present because you can't be depressed or anxious, you can just be, which we're meant to do. So when we're looking at reprogramming the mind or changing the mind, it's actually, I have used stress. I did it on a footballer who hadn't scored all season, and they were going to go down. This was worked for Barnet Football Club. And I actually asked the guy before if I can do what I was going to do. And when he came in through the dressing room, I picked him up. He was a small guy, pushed him to the wall. I was a lot younger and stronger, and gave him this mental program that he was going to score a hat-trick, and this is what it's going to feel like. Did lots of work before, so knew. And I just kept saying it to him until at the end, he said, yeah, okay, I'll score a hat-trick. And he scored a hat-trick in the next game. He hadn't scored all season. So that was mental programming. You see that with boxers, actually. Boxers, have you noticed the weigh-in? There's this whole thing where they're looking at each other, and they're mentally programming, saying, I've won this game. I've won this. You're frightened of me. You're going to back away. And actually, a lot of people say that the fight is won in the weigh-in by that. So again, the way often we can use these things is relaxation. And there are concerns like everything with these things. Because when you relax, what I did with quite a lot of my tennis players, I do a meditation tape with changing things from the past and the future. Because one of the things is the brain doesn't do vacuums. So if you just meditate, other things will come in. So there is always a risk with meditating, and it's what you're meditating on that's very important. So people who just meditate and open their sort of brain, anything can come back. Normally the same stuff comes back than what you didn't want in the first place. What you want to be doing is putting in the same thing again and again, and actually and you need to do it again and again. Because if you think about it, one of the things that I'm doing is, if you can imagine this path is next to here, this is a motorway going to where we don't want to go. This is where we want to go. What happens if I do it once? Where will everyone drive? They'll drive there. What will happen to that path? it will all, yeah, it'll just get treed over and mossed over. So you have to keep reinforcing. One of my concerns, I don't know if anyone here's done EMDR, it's brilliant and people feel great for 3 days. They create that new path, it's brilliant. And then because they don't reinforce it, they go back to the motorway again. So reinforcement, really, really important. It's why when they talk about habits, you keep having to do it again and again. It's why when I did my meditation tapes for people, but very specifically, I would do it twice a day for at least a month. The evidence, there are some MRI, sorry. Oh yes, sorry, yeah.
You talked about Liverpool, my football team. Mohamed Salah, apparently he visualising 92% of his goals are scored by him visualising him scoring the goals.
Yes.
What positions he's going to be in.
Yes, so actually, funny, if you don't mind me, so thank you for that. I'm Liverpool as well, Mo Salah, although he was not as good as he used to be, but yes, but brilliant. You're absolutely right. So I worked in football teams. I worked for Tottenham and stuff as well. And actually, for the local team here, I'm doing some talks and stuff on psychology for them. And visualization is so important. So a lot of players will visualize, especially strikers, what they're going to do. They've already done the team. Formula One drivers, a lot of them walk around the course and they actually work out how they're going to turn and do what they're going to do. And then they will sit and visualize first. Because interesting enough, as you talked about visualization, they did do a study with 3 groups of people in doing basketball. None of them were any good. They all did about the same. And then one group they didn't do anything with. The other group, they let them throw basketballs every day for a month. And the other group visualized. And interesting enough, the group that visualized did as well as the group that practiced every day. So visualization, because it's all nerve and neural. So thank you for that, yes.
There's another one. You know when Lindsay Vonn, she injured herself going and broke a leg actually, and going down the slalom, the ladies slalom last
Yeah.
week. So the course was held up for 20 minutes while a helicopter came. So the next girl that was sitting down due to go on the run, you saw her sitting down, and she was going like this with her hands,
Yes.
visualizing going down, and the way the runs were
Yeah.
going.
Yes.
She was doing with her hands.
Yeah, and that's absolutely, because obviously sports psychology is something I do quite a lot of. And absolutely, if somebody injures themselves, so one of the problems in sport is somebody injures themselves, they're normally nervous or have an accident. And often if you have an accident, oh, that's terrible, look at that foot, you'll never play again, you'll never do this. Their brain, even if they heal, they will feel they will never play again. Because actually when they have a big injury, they're in, obviously that's gone, unconscious attention, they've opened up the committee, they've not got protection. So everything that the doctor, physio, ambulance staff says to them is going to go into their brain. So actually it's really good so you might as well do the positive thing and go, yeah, I can see, be really specific and positive. So yeah, if they're striking, yeah, I can see you, I've said this before, yeah, I can see you doing, the way you curve the ball, I can see you in a little while, just curving that ball into the top corner. The way it just hits perfectly, just in that stanchion area, just below there. And can you feel that? And the way you kicked it with your left foot is going to be so good, and you're going to feel great, and I'll do the VAKKGO to program. So the child you've decided, again, the inner child's decided who you are. So often what happens is when we get into a funk, our inner child kicks in. It's like a 6, 7-year-old. And we're actually allowing the 6, 7-year-old to rule our lives, to make the decisions, which is why we go into panic, because no 6-year-old knows how to do a tax return. No 6-year-old knows how to look after a family. It's the 30 or 40-year-old that knows how to do this. So if our brain patterns click from one to the other, but also when we're creating our goals, the kid just wants to be in the playground. Our life might be wanting a big cabin in the mountains. So it's why we have to click back again. Okay, so we all finished that one. So we talked about that. So just a few things at the end. Be present, really important. The more you can be present. This life takes us from being present. Being present is a present. And the more you do it, the more actually the right things will come to you. Observe your thoughts. Just observe them as if there's somebody else that says, oh, my brain's telling me I'm rubbish again. My brain's telling me I can't do that again. My brain's telling me I want to eat another chocolate biscuit. That's my one. Speak to yourself as you want others to speak to you. So if I said to you what your brain is doing and you'd come up here and hit me in the face because I'm so rude, then I don't think you should be able to tell yourself the same thing. So we have to be really careful. Choose from love, not fear. So it's love of life, fear of death, actually, if you extrapolate it more. Go for the big goal that is the one you were created for. It's the one that really takes you there. As I said, it'll always be bigger, and you'll never be able to work it out, but life has a way of creating it for you. So thank you for coming. We've got another session. We're going to go more into how does the subconscious work next time, which is in a month, which is the 17th. Have we got any questions? Yes.
So I didn't get what the VAKO.
Geo. Yeah, so visual, which is what you see. A is auditory, what you hear. The two Ks are both feeling, but it's feeling physically. How do my muscles feel? How does my back feel? And feeling emotionally. You know, I'm happy, I'm sad. Gustatory is another one, which is what you taste. And olfactory is what you smell. Most of us work about, they say up to about 99% of us, about 33% are visualizers, 33% are people who kinesthetic use emotion. The other 33% are a mixture of the two, and about 1% or maybe 2% have a slight weird thing with some people are very auditory, some people actually, the book, I've forgotten what's called Poison or something, was where the character, his smell, he could smell everything and everything was foul there. So yeah, so it's really important. So keeps you there, but if you're creating the world you want, if you're being a child and going, oh, I'm going to have this car, I'm going to have this, you really want to use all of those. So is there any more questions? Okay. Who wants, hands up, who wants me to end with a joke? And then, yeah. Okay, all right. Walter Matthau did this joke, and I loved Walter Matthau, and I thought it was so funny. So there were these three men in a nursing home, and they're just talking to each other. And they're all fed up, and one goes, God, I hate it. 6 o'clock in the morning, get up, go for number one. It's like a few little patters, nothing more than that. I'm standing there for hours. And then he goes, you think it's bad. Number two, it says, I'm there, I'm trying number two. Nothing happens, maybe a little pellet occasionally. It's really, really bad. I'm there for like half an hour, sometimes nothing at all. And the third one's really miserable. And he goes, oh, me, my number ones are like a hose, just pours out 6 o'clock in the morning. 6 o'clock in the morning, my number twos, it's like an elephant's having a poo. It just comes straight out. And the other's saying, so what are you worried about? He says, I don't get out of bed till 9.